All right, welcome back to Lesson Notes, and today we're going to be talking about club head speed. And everybody wants to hit it further with their driver, but I think you got to pay attention to you need to be hitting it further through the bag. And so today we're actually focusing on an 8-iron swing and a gain of 6 miles an hour in a few minutes. And so if that is you want to hit your irons further, listen up. So what you're going to see is a before video and an after video and kind of where we went and why we went there. So let's start with this before video. This is a competitive junior, very good player, came into the session hitting it well. But anytime that I see a club head speed drop of a couple miles an hour, it just kind of, sends an alarm in my brain. And I say, why is this shorter than it should be? And so as we play out this video, I just want you to pay attention to a couple things and think about this as it relates to your swing. So number one is just strictly length of swing. So as I take this video back, what you're going to see is that it's basically a 3/4 backswing. And yes, there's some benefits to a 3/4 backswing. Maybe you have a little bit more control. You're able to flight the ball better. Maybe your contact's a little better. But the disadvantage of a 3/4 backswing is that you are probably going to be hitting it shorter for a couple reasons. So number one would be you're not going to have as much turn, which we'll get into here in a second. But then if the club is not traveling as far back, it's just physically likely not going to go as far. There are examples on the PGA Tour of guys with shorter backswings that still hit it far, but take that Tony Finau video from a couple years ago where he has a short backswing, but when he lengthened it, he swung almost 130 miles an hour with 200 ball speed. So definitely adding length to the swing would generally add club head speed. And that's where we really went first, is let's just have the intent of, if I told you to hit it harder, kind of where would you go? And then secondly, like we talked about, there's not a whole lot of rotation. If we look between the knees here, what you're going to see is very, very little daylight. And what I mean by daylight is as someone swings back, if you can see between their knees more, that means they're turning the lower body more, their legs are moving, and most likely their rib cage and their chest is also moving. So those are really the two things cosmetically that we're looking at, is length of swing and rotation. And then lastly, sometimes when we're playing, especially if it's cold and windy and wet, we start doing these small swings. We're really trying to control the ball, but again, control is kind of the opposite of speed. If you're trying to hit it hard, like a long drive player, a lot of times you're kind of out of control. I get we're hitting irons, an 8-iron, you're not trying to crush it. But by changing these things in the swing, we're likely going to see gains that we didn't even really have to try to hit harder just because of the club moving further and the body moving a little bit further. We did discuss trying to hit it a little bit harder on the downswing, but as you're going to see in this next video, there definitely are some changes cosmetically that led to the increase in club head speed. All right, so we've jumped over to the after swing. And before we jump into the swing, let's just go over these numbers. We've got some TrackMan data with club speed. We've got some delivery numbers, and then we've got some ball speed carry numbers. So what you see is a massive increase in club head speed of about 6 miles an hour, ball speed of nearly 10 miles an hour, and 15 yards of carry. So basically, this player came into the session, and he left gaining a club and a half, which is insane. And the same things happened with the 6-iron when we switched to that. So when you're not hitting on TrackMan or having any data, it's easy to kind of forget that you're losing speed. So I encourage you, when you do go to lessons or you ever get to hit in front of a launch monitor, check your speeds, check your yardages, because it's great to be hitting it solid, but if you're hitting it solid at 145 yards when you can hit it 160 to 165, that is definitely alarming. So let's jump into the swing now, and what you're going to see is those two things. If we go back to length of swing and rotation. So as I play this back, the main thought was, let's turn the belt buckle and the rib cage to the right, which immediately led to more daylight between the knees. So now if we go back, what you'll see is if I draw this box around his knees, you're seeing a ton more daylight. And that really is a sign of rotation. I'm also cueing him to turn his rib cage, which we will talk about that in a second. Now, as he's doing that, he's also having the thought of lengthening his arm swing. So lengthening your arm swing really just means that you're trying to take the club back further over your trail shoulder. Some of that is through the arms, and then the other part is it's through the wrist. So you can see he's definitely folding the club over his shoulder much more. And he's also having the intent of folding the club a little bit across the line, because in his previous video, it's like slightly laid off, a little bit flat, which we're going to talk about that in a second as it correlates to the club path. So if you want to hit it further, definitely adding the belt buckle, rib cage, and arm swing with folding the club over your shoulder a little bit further would be kind of the max on how you would gain distance. Now, I also have in these numbers some club data. And the reason that I showed that is because in his first swing, he was swinging a little bit left, hitting a little bit of a fade, and he was wanting to hit a draw, but the swing direction was a little left. So the reason that you're seeing the club path shift more right is as we add rotation with our body to the right. Again, I'm speaking as a right-handed player. As you add that rotation, you're going to likely swing more right because now your body is more closed or aimed to the right of the target or set up for a draw. So now the club path is going to naturally be a little bit more right. Plus, at the top of the backswing, when I'm cueing him to feel like he's a little bit more across the line, that is also going to make the club shallow a little bit more on the downswing. So all that to say, as he was coming into this session and he was really struggling with hitting the draw, that is also part of it. Now, that wasn't necessarily the point. My point of contention was more the club head speed and like, why is this down so much? And then after we did that, then obviously noticing that the ball was coming out more right and drawing is probably also a nice consequence of that in the rotation. So here's the takeaway for you. If when you're hitting, don't just look at the contact and the ball flight. You also have to look at the distance. If you don't have a launch monitor, if you don't have ball speed numbers, then you just have to look at where is it carrying relative to a target on the range. Don't be content with just having solid strikes because that's not at the end of the day going to lead to good results. If you're out on the golf course and you're saying, I'm going to hit my 8-iron 155 to 160, it only flies 145, but it was a good strike, then you're going to be like, I don't know what happened. I lost distance. That happens all the time on the lesson tee when someone comes in and they say, I don't feel like I'm hitting it as far as I was. Always look at length of swing. Always look at rotation. And those two things are highly, highly correlated. At the end of the day, it's all about club head travel. If the club head is traveling as far as it should, then you're going to hit it as far as you can, and you're not going to lose this massive distance from session to session. Again, we're very, very much a product of our environment. If we're down here in Dallas, it's been very cold, it's been very windy. In those type of conditions, it's very normal to start swinging shorter. You got lots of clothes on. If it's windy, you're trying to flight the ball. If it's wet, you're doing 3/4 punch shots. And so it's very, very easy to kind of lull ourselves into swinging smaller and shorter. So if you are on launch monitors, pay attention to that data. If you like this format, I would love to hear some comments. I don't normally do it this way. And if you have any questions, please reach out, drop a comment. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And best of luck next time you go to the range. And spring's coming, so hopefully that score is dropping.